Well, welcome everyone. Say hello. Tell us where you're joining from.
I'll jump in. I'm Jeremy. I'm joining from Newton, Mass. Right now. Where are you, Chris? You're in Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia, or near
Oh,
enough makes no difference.
I should say to those who are joining us internationally, little scoop here as we wait to start. That I can't tell you which admissions officer I was in touch with this morning, but I was in touch with an admissions officer from a top school who shared that their interest from abroad, this shouldn't be surprising, but their interest from abroad had fallen significantly, including India, Nigeria, Ghana, named countries. And I think we all anticipated that because of the some of the turmoil around visas, but clearly time has passed, our memories are short, and sometimes people forget quickly. In this case, it seems like people are not forgetting quickly, and so the applications have fallen from abroad, which creates an opportunity for those who are moving forward at this point. And we'll see what happens in the second round. Maybe people delayed in the first round because they were thinking about the situation globally and waiting to see if visas got issued and the like. But for now, considering, let's see, we've got several people who are logging in here from India, one from Nigeria. It could be perversely a great year for you to apply. So throw that out as an appetizer before we start. And I don't know, Chris, you think we should get going here?
Yeah, let's get going.
Okay, so I'm Jeremy Schonwald. I'm the founder and president of MBA Mission. Well, I'm flattered by Dr. Diamante's comment that we all know you. I'm just going to take the approach that that's not really true. So I founded MBA Mission, let's see, 22 years, 21, 22 seasons ago. Before that, I had actually been doing this part-time, unaware that this was a business or an industry. I had just been helping people. I was a speechwriter for an ambassador and had been helping people with their various writing projects and kind of stumbled into this industry. Went to business school at Darden, loved it, was a class graduation speaker. I was also, I wrote a business ethics case when I was there and spent a year in finance and then kind of realized, wait a second, I love this so much more. Maybe I can turn this into a business. So that was 2004, I think, when I started full time in this space, and just kind of really committed myself fully and found other people who committed themselves very fully to this space. So at MBA Mission, we have a full-time team. This is what we do. This is all we do. This is not a gig. This is not an after hours job where someone takes on 2 or 3 clients. This is a profession, and that's allowed us to be the industry leader. And so we've really relished the fact that in the GMAT Club world, we have let's see, over I think 1,200 more 5-star reviews than any other firm, more than I think most firms combined. Another thing that I think really signifies our brand strength and who we are is the fact that we've maintained a relationship with Manhattan Prep for almost 15 years now, I guess. Yeah, it's here 2009, so 16 years soon. We're proud of the company we keep, and we're proud to be associated with the best out there at Manhattan Prep. I'm really pleased to be hosting with Chris tonight, who's been a friend for many years. And that's it. I'm gonna let Chris introduce himself, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Let me say I'm also excited to be here with you for this. I started with Manhattan Prep around 2010. Started with GMAT, but then progressed into GRE and executive assessment. But that was actually not where I started with test prep instruction. I actually started in 2003 with LSAT work and did that for a while, and then went to law school. And similar to you, Jeremy, I was in law school and stopped teaching. And I was like, why did I stop teaching? I was really enjoying that. I'm going back, and I went back and have been here ever since. So yeah, much as with you, MBA Mission is not a gig scene. It is, people who that is their profession. Similar for me. Like, this is not a gig for me. This is my profession.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and also just from the many pleased students that we've received from you and from Manhattan Prep over the years, it's clear the commitment for sure. I was fortunate to have dinner with Stacy Koprince, who develops the curriculum for Manhattan Prep just like 2 weeks ago, and just a uniquely committed and thoughtful team that is very passionate about this test. Again, very proud of the company we keep. Why don't we roll into this? If anyone else is new, I'd love to know where you're from. Just throw it into the text. If you're joining us from abroad or domestically, even, I'm still love to know where people are from. It's a good reference point as we go through. Here really to talk about if you're on the verge of submitting, whether you should go for it or not today. We'll talk for as long as we talk. We have an hour. Happy to take as many questions as we want on this topic or really anything else. And I'll just jump right in. So, let's move to the first slide. I think just as a guiding principle, and I think sometimes we get carried away with the application process. We start to feel the pressure, the tension. Maybe we're applying with a cohort of friends or people in the office, or we perceive that others are getting ahead of us, and we sort of start to believe that like every single incremental advantage is absolutely critical. And one of those incremental advantages that we perceive is that we have to apply in the first round, and that's just not really true. We'll talk about this a little bit more as we progress through this. But your guiding principle should be that you should never be sacrificing quality for speed, right? You as an applicant should not rush something to get your application in and then feel the regret of, hey, I submitted something and I found errors, or I wish I would have done that better, or I didn't, as I looked through it, I didn't make my goal statement, clear enough. I didn't relate it to the school well enough. I didn't develop my goals personally well enough, and the whole thing feels rushed. And we don't want you to do that. And so, if you are contemplating round one, round two, I'm not telling you to choose one or the other. I'm telling you to choose quality. And if you feel that you can get the quality of the application that you can be proud of done by the round one deadline, then you should submit. But if you're saying to yourself, I don't think I can get there, whether again that's an execution piece like your essays or your resume or your short answers, or it's just some other piece, and we'll talk about both of these today. Your GMAT isn't there, you feel like I don't have a promotion in the offing, whatever it is. Don't rush your application to get everything in the first round. Know that round one isn't everything. So we'll talk about that. Maybe we should advance the slides. So what is a material difference? Like I'm saying to you, okay, you want to be, you should only be delaying if you can either do better with the execution, with your execution, or if there's a material difference in your candidacy from round one to round two. So obviously today we're here to talk about a better or most people are here keying in to talk about a better GRE and GMAT scores. You're just going to get some bonus information here beyond that if you're only coming for that. But if you have and your sense, you have to be honest with yourself, and Chris can, I'm sure, talk to you about when you've run out of gas as a test taker. But if you have a mediocre score and you feel that you can improve, and by improve I would say 20-point improvement, right? I think waiting around for 10 points, if you get your highest quality application ready to go, pretty similar to applying as you are, but maybe 20 points or higher. If you really believe you can improve, and don't just naively believe, but you have reason to believe, maybe you were testing better in a practice environment, or you've taken 2 tests and have had different outcomes on either side of the test, so you feel like you can have your best day going forward and you can improve significantly, then I would say you might actually consider waiting. 20-point improvement on the GRE or the GMAT in a year where I think this is a massive digression, but I'm willing to take it. In a year where I think a lot of admissions officers are very concerned about the Justice Department and feeling like their decisions could be questioned if they take people with lower scores that they pick for qualitative reasons. There's going to be pressure on them to pick people this year, maybe next year, maybe the year after, maybe throughout this administration, to pick people who have, fact-based, like I have a stronger GPA, a stronger GMAT. I can prove that I'm theoretically a better applicant. Right now, I think, without trying to go too deeply into this, I think this is an environment that favors higher GRE scores, higher GMAT scores, higher GPAs, because of the scrutiny of the Justice Department. So if you feel like you can get 20 points higher in the next round, I would say, if you've got a mediocre is the wrong word there. I've got an average score, shall we say. I've got an average score for my target and I can improve, great. If I've got a higher score and I can improve, then, it really just depends on where you are. I would say, again, 20, 30 points, if there's room for you to still accumulate those points and you believe that you can get them, then fine, you should wait for the second round. If you have a weak score, 100%, like if you have a weaker than average score and you feel like you can do better, you should be waiting. There's no question. You should be looking towards the second round. There's no benefit in having a weaker score. By that, I would say, like on the lower, if the school's average, I still sort of think in terms of old GMAT. I got to switch into new GMAT, but the school's average, we don't know what the school's average is in new GMAT at this point because they haven't published them. But let's say the school's average is, I think, is it a 685 that corresponds to a 720 about?
675.
675. So if you have a 675, so if you're, if your score is, say, a 645 or something like that, I would say, and you think you can score 20, 30 points higher, that's huge value add. I would push off to the second round. And these are all, keep in mind, this is all in a vacuum. I don't know anything else about your candidacy, and while I'm emphasizing that I think the admissions committees will be looking more seriously at GRE and GMAT scores, they still want to have an interesting mix of applicants in the classroom. And so it doesn't mean, I saw Dr. Mate say that that's bad news for me. It doesn't mean your ship is sunk. You can still make up for things in a qualitative manner. I think that it becomes a little bit harder on a relative basis for ultra competitive groups. So, if you're a consultant and you have a 780 GMAT score. Well, that's still thinking old GMAT, but whatever. The old
735.
It's going to take me years to stop doing this, but 735 GMAT score. In the past, they might have looked at all your qualitative information and kind of just said, like, okay, how does this relate to other people, and are there other factors? This year, I think they might find it more difficult to do that, but it doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get in with a 735, and it doesn't mean that if you have really strong qualitative aspects that you can't get in either. So don't worry too much about it. But what I was saying is that I'm saying this all in a vacuum. We would need to know more about your candidacy. So we do a free consultation, and if you want to do a free consultation with any member of our team, we can talk about this issue with you. Like, how much more do you think you can improve? When would that be coming? What's your degree of certainty? And maybe on a one-off basis, it does make sense for some people to apply with a weaker score. It really, really depends. And so this is general information. I would ask that if you're really taking this and considering making a big decision, contact us and we'll chat with you for free. But the other kinds of differences, that are also at times worth waiting for, a promotion. If your promotion is coming down the down the line, we had an applicant. I remember doing a free consultation for her myself, and she was she was like, well, should I wait for the second round? I was like, you're an awesome applicant. Like, you can start working on your candidacy right now, start working on your application right now. And, let's hope you get the application. Let's hope you get the promotion beforehand. And if you don't, let's wait for it. As it turned out, she got her promotion even earlier than she expected. She's applying in round one. But if she didn't get it, I would say, considering the magnitude of the promotion, I think she would have been a great candidate for round 2 at that point. Like someone to say, look, you should put this off. It's not the end of the world. Round 2 is still totally relevant and important, and you aren't encumbered by applying in the second round. So with a material difference in your candidacy, you're better off. And this is one example. But other things, just significant work projects or something you've been, a product release, a major deal that's going to be completed, a new responsibility you're going to be taking on, whatever it might be. If you can say, look, I am, over the course of 4 months, I'm a better applicant in round 2, that's fine. And I think you could also even write in the optional statement, it's not like you need to make an excuse for applying round 2, but I think you could even say in the optional essay, I learned a great deal from this work accomplishment, whatever it might be, this product release. I felt like I was in a position once I had completed this project to be a more established manager, a more established marketing, product management individual, whatever it might be. Just explain it and say, like, I applied with intentionality this round. Again, that doesn't mean that it's a problem.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Daily Drift asked a question which brings up something that I get a lot from my students. Daily Drift asked, can I apply with GMAT waiver in round 1 and with GMAT score in round 2? And I get asked a lot from my students, what about applying in round 1 and in round 2?
So you can't really, there's no school in which you can apply twice. Right. If you are, you can apply to different schools. Like you can say to yourself, look, I'm going to focus on the GMAT waiver and apply to my GMAT waiver schools, and it'll give me more time to start applying the second round with to work on my GMAT score, and it's not quite there now. I'll try GMAT waivers in the first round, and the schools that don't have them, I'll look to the second round. That might be a strategy, but applying twice isn't going to happen for you. So it's similarly like major community accomplishment, similar to your promotion or your significant work accomplishment. If you have this, you're moving onto the board of an organization, you are, and like if it's announced, that's okay too. You can say, like, I'm excited to join the board, or I'm excited for my promotion has not yet been announced, but I look forward to the completion of that process in November. I'm applying now. Like, you can put that in the optional information. You can put that in your resume. You can say, like, announced promotion, November 2000. What year are we in? 25. There are all sorts of other little ways to kind of have your cake and eat it too, if you know about these things. Similarly, like personal endeavors, if there's something you're really pushing yourself towards that is a real milestone, you've got your art exhibit that's being, the opening is in October, November, or whatever. Again, if you know that, you can somehow weave that in or put that in your optional essay statement. But my point is just more like, if there's something to benefit from the actual experience, then certainly go for it. Whether it's professional, community, personal, that's I think that's the type of meaningful difference that would push you into the second round. One last thing also is, at times we have applicants who are like, look, I'm going to be in my job for 4 months at this point. Like, I might want to wait until the second round because I'll have 7 months. I'll have earned my recommendation at that point. I'll have 8 months, whatever it is. Everyone has their own limits. But like, my manager will know me. I'll have completed a project, and I'll be able to get this really great letter of recommendation. And if that's the case, then that's fine too. So all of these are significant differences for you. And if you're in any of these boats, certainly consider round 2. And like my friend Dr. Draymade here, feel free to reach out to us for a sanity check on your decision making. Let's move slides. Thank you, Chris. So just in general, like, this is a very competitive pool. Like, even if the applications are down by 10 or 15% this year because of some of the noise that was going on in the lead up to the application year, this is a very, very competitive pool. And you can't afford to have a low quality application. It just doesn't matter. Like if Harvard had, typically has about 9,500 applications, and for 2 years after COVID, the lowest I've seen, since I started in this business, they had about 8,700 and 8,200 applications before it bumped back up to about 9,500. And they had I'd never seen anything under about 9,200. So to be down at 8,200, that's on a relative basis, an easy year to apply to Harvard. It just is not an easy year. You still have 8,200 people looking for 950 spots, and you have ultra competitive applicants who've done amazing things in their career. And so, it wasn't a layup. It was just on a relative basis, it was easier. So it wasn't a year to be like, oh, okay, I'll phone it in. You obviously had to try as hard as you would any other year to ensure that you stand out. So, anything that's rushed or sloppy, it's just not your best. Anything that's, ChatGPT, I get the excitement about it. I can see, we see it in the way applicants are even interacting with us through email, or through, in their own work at times. I would just say to you, if you're going to crowdsource your work at this point, it's just not going to give you the kind of, for lack of a better word, potency necessary to really create a strong application. I think there's a role for ChatGPT, I suppose, in, if you just can't get that resume bullet down to 2 lines, or you can't find the right word or whatever it is, there is a role for ChatGPT. But I would just say that, if you're highly dependent on it, then you're just highly dependent on something that everyone else is highly dependent on, and you won't be able to create something that really allows you to stand out. If you have disconnected goals, so most schools still have a personal statement where they ask you why you want to go to our school, why you want your MBA. If your goals are generic, they're uninformed, or even worse, they're not achievable, which happens at times. You have people who say things like, yeah, I mentioned I was a speechwriter before I went to business school. I want to, in the future, I'd like to be a hedge fund manager. There isn't a path between those two things. That's not going to happen with an MBA. They could say, wow, what a great guy. We love Jeremy. He's an awesome guy. He's going to do amazing things in his career. He's just not going to be a hedge fund manager, and he's going to be upset when he graduates. He's not going to feel good about this experience because we didn't get him where he wants to go. We'll let him go. Some other school can take their chance on him becoming a hedge fund manager. Similarly, why our school, if you're talking about, why Chicago, and you're just phoning it in with they got wonderful Nobel laureates on staff, and it's a great quantitative school. It's got flexibility. That's just something anyone can say from the most lightly researched, work. It's just not going to do anything for you. So you need to really think through these aspects. And if you're rushing through and you're just trying to hit a deadline and you're not getting there, it's going to sink your ship. You may as well not apply. Having an old resume that you've been cobbling together since high school that's disorganized and is a jumble of generic statements about you and your role, as opposed to impactful statements about things you've accomplished, that's a problem. A spelling error or grammatical error is actually not the end of the world. People have them. I know this from speaking to an admissions officer at Harvard who said to me, I asked her about a point blank. She's sort of an acquaintance of mine. She's like, no, I got a stack. She's like, you'd be surprised what you'd be surprised that people make simple mistakes. She's like, I don't like consistent sloppiness, but I'm not going to throw someone on the pool for, an idiosyncrasy of expression or anything like that. Or a misplaced period, or that's just not her role. Her role, she feels, is to get to know the applicant, who they are. If getting to know the applicant says this applicant is sloppy, then she's not going to let that person in. So anyway, the point is, you should be as careful as possible. It's actually quite hard to totally, catch every little thing in a massive document, but you can do it, and we encourage you to do it. So focus on that for your highest quality application, but also know that if again a comma gets missed or whatever, that's not why they're accepting or rejecting people. Similarly, this is sort of, there's so many questions. People leave the short answer questions at the very end. So in your application, all sorts of questions about your salary and your bonus and your role, your time and your role, and some schools will ask you where what the org chart was like, what your accomplishments were, why you left. They'll do this for your extracurriculars. They'll do this. There's so many little questions, and it's not that you will be dinged for entering questions that aren't right, or for entering answers that aren't right. But if you have if you've entered a lot of incorrect information, when they go through and they say, when they go through at the end and they do a sanity check, they do a background check, they're going to look and they're going to say, okay, well, why is all of Jeremy's salary information and his starting date's wrong? Like, why did he say he managed 2 people and he didn't? Or, like, why is all this a mess? And they're going to start, there could be some problems later on if your story sort of doesn't add up, even inadvertently. And really, I would say also try to not rush your recommenders, and try to make sure that they're not using ChatGPT. Make sure that they are actually writing anecdotally about what you've done that allows you to stand out. Because if they're relying on ChatGPT, it probably means they're phoning in your recommendation. Try to get a sense of whether they can be committed to you. Prepare a little cheat sheet for them, but all your major accomplishments, both your hard accomplishments, in your role, but also your soft accomplishments, mentorship, training, whatever it might be, and try to make sure that they are going to, invest themselves and give like really thoughtful, detailed anecdotes that allow you to stand out. And if they don't, then you might want to find someone else, and that might take you time, and that's fine. Okay, next slide. I think this is, really kind of harkening back to the beginning. I'm in touch with a lot of admissions officers. You can see them on the podcast that we do. We've got another admissions officer coming in next week to do our podcast with us, with me and Harold. I don't know, is anyone here watching me and Harold? I think Dr. Dre, my mate, was saying earlier that he's a fan. We have a lot of admissions officers, and we ask these questions just to get them on the record saying these things so that we know that this is orthodoxy. But like, we had Bruce Delmonico from Yale on the other day, and he was very upfront about the fact that like the rounds for him are equal, and this is true of MIT as well, where he asked this, and like several other schools where we've had guests. And I talk to admissions officers regularly. Unless there's some very, very critical reason that you apply in, like if you're I don't want to pick on anyone, if you're a Deloitte consultant or an Accenture consultant with average GMAT and average GPA, I might push for that round 1. I might say, look, I'm going to be overrepresented. They're going to see a lot of applicants like me in the first round. I'll apply. They might not have as many spaces for me. Just game theory, the box is only so big that they've accepted a few. There are a few left to be accepted. Maybe I'll apply in round 1. But if you're really outside of like the most overrepresented groups, you're probably fine in round 1 or round 2, as long as you do better. I would basically forget a conventional round 3, like an March, April round. You think about it, Harvard doesn't even have that round anymore, because they just weren't accepting anyone, so they just canceled the round. We've seen applicants get in certainly in round 3 at Wharton. I think this year, if there's one of declining application volumes, it's possible that round 3 will be a little bit more flexible. But if you're on this call, there's no reason for you to be applying in round 3. Please apply in round 2 if you feel like you're running out of time round 1, or if you make it round 1, obviously that's best, as long as, again, the quality is as high as it can be. With that, I'm going to turn it over. Thank you for your questions. We're going to turn it over to Chris. I'm just going to get a little water, actually, so I'm going to log off for a second here. Turn it back over to Chris, and I'll rejoin in a moment.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was a lot of good insight there. I appreciate that, and a lot of things that I'll be sharing with my students as well. So my role today is the idea of, if you're in that position where you want to get those last few points, where does that happen? Necto, you're asking, can I learn how to get a GMAT 700 plus here? Keep in mind that anytime you're targeting 700 plus, you're probably using the old GMAT scores as your metric. The GMAT changed formats about 1.5 years ago now. And with that change in format also came a change in the scoring algorithm. and a change in where the high scores land. General rule of thumb is if you take the old published information for GMAT scores, which if you're seeing average or median scores that are like 720s, 730s, you're looking at the old data from the previous version of the test. I think that's all that's being reported from schools still. Take those numbers, subtract 45 from those, and that's really a more appropriate current target. So Necto, you want GMAT 700 plus, your new target is GMAT 665. And so just keep that in mind as you're thinking about your score goals. Before I dive into anything, is there anyone in the room? And I hope the answer is yes, not for your sake, but just because that means that I could probably give you some good insight and some help here. Is there anyone in the room who has that feeling of, God, if I could just get that little score boost, I would feel so much better about my application? If you're in that boat, please type in the chat and let me know what you're feeling about that. I'll hold here for just a minute. Dr. Draymond is an emphatic yes. Anyone else? Stuck at 605. I'll keep an eye on the chat, see if anybody else is sharing some of their goals or current positions here. This idea of how can I gain that score boost in about 2 to 3 weeks? And I would say that 2 to 3 weeks is an absolute minimum. Trying to get a score boost in 1 week, I've seen people try it. I don't normally see it succeed. You need at least a couple of weeks for one core reason. There needs to be some part of the test where you change your habit of how you approach that topic or that question type. And you need to have the time to take 2 practice tests with that habit and new strategy in place so that you can apply it under the time pressure of a full test and under the exhaustion factor of a full test. So make sure that you give yourself enough time. 10 points a week. I've seen that happen. Usually, Dr. Draymond, it's not a linear 10 points every week, but I usually see like a 2 to 3 weeks things stay the same. Like again, like I said, trying to get improvement in 1 week is usually not realistic, but you see 2 to 3 weeks, then it can happen. But after about 2 to 3 weeks, you see a little boost, maybe like 20, 30 points. Then after another 2 to 3 weeks, you see another like 20 to 30 point boost. In terms of how well this can happen, first of all, what is your goal score? Dr. Amos is actually given a fairly common thing. Someone who wants to get from the low 600s into the upper mid 600s. That's actually a really common goal, and I see that happen a lot. If you're saying to me, Chris, I'm at a 675 and I want to hit 635, that's rough. That's really rough. Essentially, every incremental point boost gets harder than the previous one. So it gets harder to move from a 715 from a 705. It gets a lot harder to move from to a 735 from a 725. And again, realistically, we should be looking to say, all right, how can I get into those high 600s? The other basic question is, what kind of study regimen can you maintain? That's the point, Draymond. Thank you. Really drilling down quant. Okay. Oh, all right. We'll come back to that in a second. What kind of study regimen can you maintain? Generally speaking, if you're looking for some type of score boost in 2 to 3 weeks, you got to be hitting a minimum of 10 hours a week. Better, it's 15. And it needs to not be, I'm going to do 15 hours a week because I'm going to do 8 hours on Saturday and 8 hours on Sunday. That's really, if not literally counterproductive, really close to counterproductive. You want it to be much more small increments, an hour to 90 minutes at a time. Try to get it, if not every day a week, at least every day but one a week. And have one day, maybe 2, where you can settle down for a good 3 to 4 hour chunk, broken into 90-minute segments with little breaks in between. If you can maintain that kind of study regimen, then you can see a pretty good score boost in about 2 to 3 weeks. And then the last thing, how focused are your improvement needs? Draymate's got a really good example. Feel good about the verbal. Verbal's cracked, done. I'm happy. So what do I get with the improvement? I'm going to narrow it down to quant. Now, for this type of improvement, we need to narrow it even further. Saying I'm going to improve quant in 2 to 3 weeks, you need to pick a few topics in 2 to 3 weeks. And so, yeah, Dramit's like posting a pretty good schedule there. An hour a day, then about after work, an hour of review. And I like the fact that it's new and then review separated by a significant period of time with a good block on Saturday, Sunday, which is pretty common. We need to get very, very focused when we want to get this specific score boost. So not just quant. We need to get a little bit more in depth there. In the verbal section, critical reasoning is your best bet for quick improvement. Reading comprehension definitely can show improvement, but reading comprehension tends to be a more long-term game. You need to reshape how you read the passages. You need to reshape what kind of notes you're making. And reading comprehension is not something that I see quick improvement in usually, because it's just much more broad scale analysis. For critical reasoning, I mentioned here specifically find the assumption questions and inference questions. Those specifically because those have very unique characteristics for their correct answers. And so you can actually look at not just the question type, but also the answer choice characteristics for the correct answers for those two question types. That would be my recommendation there. Want to increase 315 in a month? I would say first thing there, a foundations of math type thing. Make sure that your quantitative foundations are completely solid to get those first foundational score improvements on the lower ends. In the quant section, what I call pure algebra and number properties, those tend to be the most predictable. Those tend to be the most uniform in how they are presented. When you have a quadratics problem, you have a quadratics problem. Usually not that much variety in that. How do I handle a quadratic? Well, I have certain algebraic techniques. I have certain number testing techniques. Similar with exponent rules. You have rules for exponents. You have the way that they work, and a very, very predictable, very, very pun intended formulaic, considering the fact that my next point is also formula and function questions. Formula and function questions and positives versus negatives, those are on this list because those can be a primary source of number testing, not traditional algebra mechanics. And so that's where you can land a pretty good boost in a certain question type or content area by changing the way that you approach them. Data insights sections. Short term, got to go with data sufficiency and got to go with graphs and tables. Data sufficiency because, again, it is a very, very unique presentation. And usually problems in data sufficiency or low accuracy in data sufficiency is about not being fully aware of how to function within that question type. Graphs and tables questions are also on this list because it's very, very common for a graph or a table question in the data insight section to be able to work from, if not a direct answer from visual inspection, at least a strategic guess from visual inspection. An example of that, anything like just looking and saying, they could ask about, is there a negative correlation? And a negative correlation just means you look at the data and see, as one goes up, does the other go down? There's no calculation involved there. There's no actual mathematics. It's just a visual inspection of the data. How to tackle reading comprehensions. The main thing with reading comprehension is to recognize the mindset that you need. People look into reading comprehension and think that they are meant to comprehend the actual content of the passage. That's not your primary goal. Your primary goal with reading comprehension is to comprehend the point of view and then let the question guide you to specific elements in the passage and learn how to use those elements. Notice the way I describe it is a very, very process-oriented aspect. There's not really a quick trick for that. There's not a unique test like there is for find the assumption questions and there's not a specific characteristic that tends to be the case as you see in inference questions and critical reasoning. I'll hold here for a moment. Does anyone else have quick questions or comments or concerns about their attempts to improve their score in a short period of time, or by a very concrete score goal amount? I love how Jeremy was very polite and not drinking water during his consultation, his talk, and I was like, "Nah, I'm just going to have it."
I'm like a chronic perpetual water drinker. One more second, I would have done it.
Yeah. All right.
Any questions?
Let's take a look.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if I'm not seeing any questions pop in, so why don't we try one problem of each? Let's grab a find the assumption question from Manhattan Prep generated problem. And I'll give everybody 2 minutes to give this one a try. Go and give it a shot. That's about 2 minutes. While people are still considering this problem, I'll respond to Michael Baxter's comment in the chat. A lot of deviation in practice test scores, 635 on one test, 725 on the next test. That type of score deviation usually comes from timing issues. You said you did a new section order on one of the tests. Take a look specifically at, did that new section order change your ability to manage your time within this section? That's the most common reason for a really big bump like that. And whatever changed there, however your timing changed, pay very, very close attention to that and make your absolute goal, I want to maintain that particular timing mentality there. All right, this question, and beautiful example of why I love find the assumption questions. They don't always do this, but when they do, it is a gorgeous thing. The claim of the utility companies. They give you a target. And you look at that and you say, well, what is it that the utility companies claim? The utilities claim that, and notice here, the problem is trying to hide the claim. Although these sources require significant initial capital investment, that word although tells you this is not really their claim. This is sort of a counterpoint to their claim. Despite the fact that they require significant capital investment, we claim that they, Your renewable energy sources will provide stable energy supplies at low cost. And that's our target. And our main goal here, there's a lot behind the scenes analysis that can go into play here, but what I love about this question type is how you can find a target. Which of these answer choices do I need so that we can have stable energy supplies from renewable sources? Do we need the public to embrace it? No. Even if the public doesn't embrace it, these energy sources could still be stable. Do we need that for there to be no new deposits of gas, oil, and coal? Not really. New deposits of gas, oil, and coal, whether they exist or not, is not going to influence the stability of your renewable sources. It's really not going to influence the cost of your renewable sources. Those things would not be dependent on each other. Weather patterns are consistent and predictable. Well, that's interesting. Do I need the weather patterns to be consistent? Do I need the weather patterns to be predictable for these energy supplies to be stable? And you say, yeah, I kind of do. If that fails, if these weather patterns are not consistent, how would renewables, chiefly wind and solar, give you stable energy supplies? If choice C fails, this claim of the utility companies absolutely fails. And that, by the way, is your final test for this question type. If the answer choice failed, the argument also fails. We don't need for the technology to be more expensive or less expensive. That would not change the stability. And whether it can be made less risky, that's actually quite tempting. But notice that this is focused on your other sources of energy. And that would tell you whether the other sources of energy could be made stable. But that's not going to tell you why renewables could be made stable. And so your best choice here would be C. One of my favorite examples of the clarity that I feel finding assumption questions and critical reasoning often offer because of the precision of the goal of the question itself. So this would be an example of one area where if you practice this and get this to be part of your process, then you can get a pretty good score bump in critical reasoning in a fairly short time by changing the way you analyze problems and saying, hey, if you give me a specific goal, and it happens a good portion of the time, if you give me a specific goal, I'm going to use that to my advantage. And in my answer choices, I'm going to test for failure. If this answer choice failed, would my argument also fail? In our closing minutes here, let's take a look at a quant example. Again, give everyone a few moments to get started on this. Before we dive into this, I just want to really acknowledge some of the most fantastic chat aliases that I'm seeing in here. We got Dr. Dreamate. We have, I'm guessing it's Hey Anase to take advantage of the rhyme. Let me know if I said that correctly, because if so, I love that rhyming there. And then Redicted AF. I think I know what you're talking about, and I feel you on that one. This is one of my favorite examples of just how, if we have this concrete, absolute fluency in exponent rules, we have this problem dead to rights. And this is one of the areas where I say quadratics, exponents, those types of things where you have pure rules. Make sure that you have those completely down. Let me just rewrite this, because strangely, the screenshot kind of distorted how the positives and negatives really view here. It almost like you have a string of exponents when it's really a string of 3 raised to exponents here. And so I'm seeing a lot of correct answers pile in here. And you look and say, all right, so the trap they're hoping that I'm going to get into is to try to combine the exponents right now. And you know, with that addition symbol in between things, you know you cannot do that. And the other thing that they love is to recognize that people like to work with the less scary thing, but work with the scariest thing. Work with that most negative exponent and say, you know what? Let's go ahead and make that most negative exponent 3 to the negative 4 the foundation of how I transform this problem. And then follow my rules here so that I have a system now where, by using that scariest portion to transform the problem, I now have something which is much, much more manageable. So what you now have is 3 to the 4th over, you got an 81 plus a 27 plus a 9 plus a 3 plus a 1. And we have that 3 to the 4th. When you take the square root of that, that's going to be your 9. All of this, your 81, 27, 9, 3, 1, that's going to equal 121. So we have the square root of 81 over 121, which becomes 9 over 11. This is also a beautiful example of how we can look to the quantitative section and make guessing strategy decisions. If I'm looking at this, and again, if you start to look for this, you're going to see it more often than you might believe. If I'm guessing on this, I'm never guessing E and I'm never guessing D. I'm sticking to this formatting where I'm seeing lots of things in fractions and the repetition of that formatting. I'm specifically sticking to B and C because of how they're not only formatted to each other, they are just so very nearly identical to each other. Technically, D is also the reciprocal of A, but when you see that type of formatting change, you really want to stay away from that type of formatting outlier. But these are 2 examples of where, if I'm looking for someone, and this frequently happens, who says, Chris, I need this number of points in this number of weeks, where can I get them? These are the 2 things I'm putting to the question types and the content areas that have very exact rules and tests and very predictable trends in how the problems are constructed. About ready to close here. I want to say thank you for your time here. I want to put in just a few notes here. You've got, for Manhattan Prep, you can try GMAT or GRE classes for free. Take the first full session of 1, get it for free. And like I said, like Jeremy's saying here, round 1, round 2, they're basically the same. So if you're looking to say, you know what, round 1 is not my best bet, I'm doing round 2, get in here. Take advantage of that time that you're going to be buying for yourself. Lots of free resources on manhattanprep.com. And then also you've got this 10% coupon here that you can use. And I'm going to shout out one more time. Jeremy mentioned this earlier, but I really want to emphasize, I've sent so many students to MBA mission people for those 30-minute consultations, and everyone comes back and says that was incredibly helpful. And thank you for telling me about it, because before you mentioned it, I didn't even know it was an option. You know it's an option now. Take advantage of it.
Thanks, Chris, for the shout out. I should also mention that before we wrap, that we launched On Track by MBA Mission, a self-paced study, dynamic curriculum. It's starring me. If you're tired of me, I wouldn't watch it, because I am all over it. There are 80 different modules. It customizes itself to you. We have an awesome free plan that has a huge amount of information in it. If anyone here is a long-term planner, I'm assuming most people are on the verge of applying, but there are all the execution modules on essays, on resumes, on interviews. There's an interview video tool. There's deep dives into every school of your choice, both learning about the schools themselves, just their curriculum, even where people live. Like it goes through everything, the good, the bad of the schools, and then goes into how to apply to them. It's massive. We're very proud of it. And there's a huge component that's available for free. So just check out ontrack.mbamission.com. I should have put that, if I could figure out how to join the chat here, even though it says join the chat. It's asked me to connect my YouTube account. I'm not sure we have time for that to validate myself. So ontrack.mbamission.com. And it was really fun for me to watch Chris dissect those questions. I could do them every day for the rest of my life and never get the score necessary to compete at the top schools these days. So, but I envy those who are able to dissect them quickly. Or maybe I would need the expert tutoring of a guy like Chris, who could tell me, who could teach me how to manage it. But anyway, it was really fun to see Chris execute. And yeah, if anyone has any specific questions after this, because we are short on time, please just reach out for a free consultation. Our team is holding nothing back. Our free consultation is, we always say it's the first half hour of your paid experience with us, only it's free, meaning that we're gonna answer questions for you as we would as if you had paid for a package. So that's that for me. I don't, anything else, guys? Or anything else for Chris? It's just you.
Yeah.